Spirit over sin, how your soul fights, what your flesh desires. There is a quiet place inside you that remembers who you are. It does not shout, it does not bargain. It calls you by the name you were given before the noise, before the scars, before the world taught you to clutch at what will not last. That place is where the Spirit whispers, and its voice is different from the voice of appetite, fear, and pride. Appetite argues, fear calculates, pride rehearses its defense, but the Spirit simply testifies about truth, about love, about the way. The battle you feel each day is not proof that you're failing, it is proof that you are alive and being led. The flesh wants shortcuts, the Spirit wants roots, the flesh wants applause, the Spirit wants alignment. The flesh wants comfort now. The Spirit wants a crown that does not rust. When you feel torn, you are standing at a sacred intersection. One road paved with familiar habits that promise relief, and the other, quieter road that promises freedom. The first road is crowded, lit with neon and noise, always selling something. The second appears narrow and ordinary, but it carries you home. To walk the second road is to accept that holiness rarely looks dramatic from the outside. It sounds like small yeses, yes to truth over image, yes to quiet over clamor, yes to obedience over impulse, yes to slow formation over quick relief. And yet nothing is small in a realm where each decision becomes a seed. You sow what you love, you harvest what you become. Where the flesh pushes you to consume, the Spirit teaches you to cultivate. Where the flesh floods you with urgency, the Spirit offers pace and presence. Where the flesh tells you to protect your image, the Spirit invites you to protect your integrity. This is not a war you win once in a dramatic moment. It is a war you win each morning by choosing what to guard, what to gaze at, and what to give your strength to. Your soul is not weak for wrestling. Your soul is wise for noticing that what shines in the distance may be ash up close. Your deepest self is not starving, it is selective. It will not be satisfied with sweet illusions that leave your conscience bitter. It longs for bread that breaks cleanly, water that quiets the ache, a yoke that fits your shoulders and does not grind your bones into dust. The Spirit speaks in that grammar. Its vocabulary is mercy, truth, patience, courage, humility, and joy. These are not slogans, they are muscles. They grow with use, they strain under weight, they tear and repair. The flesh wants results without resistance. The Spirit builds resilience through resistance. To live by the Spirit is to accept the honest weight of becoming. You will not drift into it, you will decide into it and decide again. But do not mistake decision for isolation, because grace is not a spectator. Grace is the strength you discover while obeying. Grace is breath when you thought you had none. Grace is the hand that rises in you when you pray, the clarity that returns when you confess, the peace that arrives when you surrender what you can't control and steward what you can. In this war, the loudest part of you is rarely the truest. The truest part of you carries a cross quietly and finds, in the carrying, a life that cannot be taken away. Begin there, with a willingness to be led, to be taught, to be corrected, to be strengthened. Begin by bringing your hunger into the light. What you bring into the light loses its leverage. What you hide grows 1,000 roots. Bring it all. The pattern you're tired of repeating, the wound you keep numbing, the desire that keeps disguising itself as freedom. Hold it up to the one who knows the difference between craving and calling. Let him separate it in you. The soul heals when it is honest, and honesty is the first act of spiritual courage. You will learn to recognize the Spirit's fingerprints, conviction without condemnation, clarity without cruelty, urgency without anxiety, boldness without bravado, rest without apathy. And you will learn to recognize the flesh's tricks, permission that sounds like compassion but is really surrender to harm, comfort that sounds like wisdom but is really fear, confidence that sounds like faith but is really control. The battlefield is your attention, the weapons are your habits, the victory is your becoming. Let us step into the fight, not as frightened prisoners of desire, but as sons and daughters who know the sound of our shepherd's voice. The anatomy of temptation and the strategy of the spirit. The flesh rarely announces itself as rebellion. It arrives as rationale. It tells a story about relief and calls that story necessary. It edits the cost and inflates the benefit. It offers a picture of the future that features only the moment after the indulgence, never the morning after. The flesh speaks the dialect of exception, just this once, because you're tired, just this once, because it's been hard, just this once, because who would know? The spirit, in contrast, invites you to see the whole film, not just the glossy trailer. It brings tomorrow's truth into today's temptation. It widens the frame until the seduction looks small in the context of your calling. Where the flesh compresses time to pressure you, the spirit expands time to free you. One compresses to trap, the other expands to liberate. Every temptation has two layers, the surface urge and the subterranean need. The surface urge might be to escape, to impress, to possess, to retaliate. But beneath that urge is a need the flesh cannot meet, to be seen without performing, to be safe without control, to be whole without hiding, to be significant without superiority. Temptation succeeds when you try to meet a spiritual need with a material shortcut. The spirit's strategy is not only to say no to the shortcut, but to say yes to the deeper provision. The spirit does not merely block doors, it opens better ones. Denial without delight breeds despair. But obedience paired with better nourishment births endurance. The flesh promises intensity. The spirit provides intimacy. Intensity spikes, then drops, leaving you emptier than before. Intimacy deepens with presence, building capacity. The flesh wants you to associate freedom with the absence of boundaries. The spirit teaches that freedom is the power to become who you are meant to be, which always requires shape. A river without banks is not freer, it is a flood. Consider the moment of pressure. Your body tightens, your mind races. The old path lights up like a runway at night because you've landed there so many times that your nervous system knows the route in the dark. This is not cause for shame, it's cause for skill. The spirit trains you to rewrite instinct by practicing attention. Breathe and name it. My body is loud, but my values are louder. My habit is strong, but my hope is stronger. My craving is urgent, but my calling is patient and sure. In that simple naming, you are stepping into the spirit's pace. The next step is to relocate. Temptation thrives in vague rooms. Walk into a precise room where the Spirit meets you. Scripture spoken aloud, a prayer said honestly, a phone call to a friend who knows your real life, a walk that shakes the snow globe of your thoughts until the flakes settle and you can see again. Temptation wants secrecy. The Spirit uses fellowship. Temptation wants momentum. The Spirit breaks momentum with a holy interruption. You can interrupt a spiral. You can change the scene. You can sing when you feel like scrolling and give when you feel like grasping. You are not your first impulse. You are what you reinforce. The flesh tells you that desire is destiny. The Spirit tells you that desire is direction only when it has been discipled. Discipled desire learns to love what leads to life. Undiscipled desire loves what sparkles. Sparkle is not light. Light shows you the way. Sparkle distracts you from it. The flesh will always frame obedience as deprivation, but the Spirit reframes it as devotion. Devotion does not keep you from joy. It keeps you for joy. The boundary you honor today is the bridge you'll cross tomorrow when weight arrives. Compromise feels like progress because it moves you somewhere quickly, but it moves you away from yourself. Purity feels slow because it builds you somewhere sturdy, but it returns you to yourself. If the flesh persuades by pressure, the Spirit persuades by presence. Practice turning toward presence. When you are pulled toward the old lure, pause and ask, what am I really seeking right now? If the answer is rest, then choose a holy rest that doesn't demand a hidden cost. If the answer is connection, choose a conversation that doesn't leave your conscience fractured. If the answer is joy, choose a gratitude that multiplies rather than an indulgence that narrows. The Spirit will not shame your hunger, it will shepherd it. Hunger is not your enemy, mislabeling is. When you call distraction rest, you still wake up tired. When you call comparison ambition, you still feel small. When you call secrecy privacy, you still feel alone. Name it cleanly. Let the Spirit reinterpret your ache. And when you fall, and you will sometimes, not because grace is weak, but because growth is messy, come back quickly. The flesh leverages delay. It will tell you that you can't pray until you've cleaned up, that you can't confess until you've proved you won't do it again, that you can't return until you deserve to. The Spirit cuts that knot. Return now. Confession is not a courtroom where you earn a lighter sentence. It's a clinic where you receive the correct medicine. Repentance is not self-disgust. It is redirection. Holiness is not never bleeding. It is learning where to be bound up and by whom. Build rhythms that make obedience more likely. Morning consecration that sets intention. Midday pauses that realign attention. Evening exam that replaces denial with truth, and truth with tender course correction. Put guardrails where you tend to drift. Put mentors where you tend to rationalize. Put service where you tend to circle yourself. The flesh shrinks your world to your urges. Service re-expands it to love. The soul grows by giving itself to something worthy. You will not white-knuckle your way to peace. You will love your way into it. Love truth more than image. Love people more than power. Love God more than the gifts you hope He gives. That love will edit your appetites from the inside, not by suppressing them, but by maturing them. In time, you will notice the miracle. Temptations that used to feel like hurricanes become passing weather. You still feel the wind, but your roots hold. This is not because you became superhuman. It is because you became honest and attached your honesty to grace. Do not underestimate the compounding effect of hidden faithfulness. 10 minutes of scripture when you feel nothing still plant seed. A gentle answer when you feel provoked breaks a generational pattern. A private surrender when no one is watching trains your heart to prefer the Father's reward over the crowd's. The flesh keeps score loudly, the Spirit writes quietly. Heaven reads the quiet. And when the enemy cannot lure you with obvious bait, he will try subtler hooks, exhausting you with good things until you're too numb for the best things, flattering you with opportunities that look like destiny but function like detours, tempting you to fight battles you were never assigned. Discernment is not suspicion, it is alignment. Ask not only, is this wrong? Ask, is this mine? Not every open door is your door. The Spirit leads by peace that fits the yoke of your calling. The flesh leads by pressure that inflates your sense of self and then collapses it. You will become skilled at telling the difference as you practice. This is how your soul fights, not by hating your humanity, but by harnessing it, not by despising desire, but by discipling it, not by performing holiness, but by receiving it and walking it out. You will still have days when the tug is strong, but you will also have days when you notice you are freer than you were, and that noticing is holy praise. Keep going. Keep choosing the narrow road that widens your heart. Keep letting the Spirit train your will until obedience is not a chore, but a chosen love. If this journey is speaking to you, if you want more long-form, soul-deep guidance like this to strengthen you for the daily battle and help you grow in quiet, steady holiness, subscribe to the channel now and stay with us as we continue. Training the will, how the Spirit forms endurance, where the flesh seeks escape. The will does not grow strong by accident. It grows by alignment, and alignment is the fruit of attention, affection, and repeated action under pressure. The flesh treats your will like a battery to be preserved for comfort. The spirit treats your will like a muscle to be strengthened for love. That difference explains the strange fatigue that follows indulgence and the strange strength that follows obedience. Indulgence seems like it should revive you because it supplies quick relief, yet afterward you feel smaller because you required your will to serve your appetites. Obedience seems like it should drain you because it asks for costly choices, yet afterward you feel larger because your appetites were invited to serve your purpose. When people say they don't have willpower, what they often mean is that their will has been spent in 1,000 unchosen directions. The flesh tires your will by scattering it. The spirit focuses your will by gathering it. And gathering begins with a clear confession of what you are aiming at. If you treat holiness as a vague mood, your will wanders. If you treat holiness as an embodied loyalty to a living Lord who calls you by name, your will discovers its workplace, time, tongue, task, and thought. You cannot train what you refuse to touch, so touch your day, its hours, its inputs, its thresholds. Name the places where you tend to drift and the moments when you tend to bargain. Name the faces whose praise can tilt your choices. Name the little rituals that either tether you to truth or tune you to noise. To train the will, you do not begin with heroic gestures. You begin with honest measurements. Where am I spending my strength? What am I rehearsing? Who am I becoming by repetition? The flesh tells you to ask whether a choice is allowed. The spirit teaches you to ask whether a choice is aligned. Allowed will keep you near the boundary. Aligned will pull you toward the center. If you live only at the edge of what is permitted, you will always be one nudge from a fall. If you live near the heart of what is pleasing, you will have room to trip and recover without leaving the path. Endurance is not simply the ability to last. It is the ability to last while loving well. Many can grit their teeth and delay an impulse for a while. The spirit builds a will that delays impulse because it delights in a larger good. That is why pure denial by itself becomes brittle. It can hold for a season, then shatters under a surge of pressure. Delighted denial, denial in the service of joy, becomes supple and strong. The athlete who trains for the race says no to certain foods and yes to certain disciplines, not because she worships rules, but because she loves to run well. Likewise, the soul that loves God learns to love what clears the way to Him. The commandments stop feeling like fences around a field you want to enter and start feeling like signposts to the summit you want to reach. And as love matures, your will becomes less a referee between equal teams and more a conductor of ordered affections. You stop arguing with yourself about every small choice because you have pre-decided who you are and whose you are. Still, nobody becomes steady by merely admiring steadiness. The spirit tutors the will through practice under friction. Consider the small frictions of an ordinary day. The complaint you feel forming on your tongue, the scroll that numbs you, the envy that pricks you when a friend is praised, the compromise that beckons when no one is watching. Each moment is a gym for your soul, the exact weight required to strengthen the precise muscle you need. You do not need a dramatic battlefield to become a person of warlike virtue. You need a faithful response to the skirmish in front of you. The flesh mislabels these skirmishes as trivial, so that you will neglect them and remain weak. The spirit dignifies them as training, so that you will engage them and grow strong. Every kept promise tightens your grip. Every ruled thought rewires your reflexes. Every quiet yes to truth moves your future closer. A central pillar in training the will is consecrated attention. What you behold, you become in shape, if not in detail. To behold is to give something the right to tell you what is valuable and what is normal. If your gaze is colonized by comparison, covetousness becomes normal and gratitude becomes strange. If your gaze is colonized by mockery, cynicism becomes normal and reverence becomes strange. The Spirit reshapes normal by reteaching your eyes. This is why the Word is not merely a reference book, but a reformatting force. When you speak Scripture aloud, you give your attention a scaffold to climb, your memory a field to graze, your imagination a map that charts alternate routes through familiar temptations. The flesh invites you to improvise under pressure. The Spirit trains you to preload truth so that, under pressure, you have lines to sing. A will trained by truth does not pause to bargain when bait appears. It recognizes the pattern and walks past it the way a seasoned traveler walks past counterfeit signs in a crowded station. The next pillar is consecrated rhythm. Your will is like a compass that can be knocked off true by jolts. Rhythm stabilizes it. Rhythm is not a cage. It is a cadence that keeps first things first when feelings fluctuate. Morning consecration is not magical because of sunrise, but because of sequence. Before you are named by the world, you remember your name from the Lord. Midday exam is not holy because of a clock, but because of interruption. You admit drift early instead of discovering it after a day has hardened. Evening gratitude is not quaint. It teaches your nervous system to land the day in thanksgiving rather than in loops of unfinished work or imagined slights. These small obediences stack. Stacked obedience changes identity. You stop being a person who occasionally resists and become a person who routinely prefers the things that bring life. The flesh, sensing this, will try to shame you when you miss a day so that a skip becomes a slide. The Spirit will remind you that formation is a long river. You re-enter wherever you are. Returning quickly is part of your rhythm, not an exception to it. You will discover that endurance requires boundaries that seem excessive to those who have not fought your battles. Do not negotiate your guardrails with people who have not bled where you have bled. If you know that late-night scrolling melts your resolve, put the phone in another room and call it wisdom, not weakness. If you know that certain places or conversations tilt you toward an old habit, redraw your map and call it loyalty to your future, not fear of your past. The flesh frames boundaries as poverty. The Spirit calls them pathways. A train is not less free for running on tracks. Its nature is honored by the rails that carry it toward its purpose. In the same way, your soul moves truest when your life carries the grooves of chosen limits. Limits are not punishments. They are the architecture of endurance. Another pillar is fellowship that knows your real story. The flesh thrives on isolation because isolation lets you curate an image that your conscience cannot maintain. The Spirit thrives in fellowship because fellowship lets you borrow strength when your own feels thin. Do not mistake secrecy for privacy. Privacy protects dignity, secrecy protects dysfunction. Find people who love your holiness more than your image. People who will not be scandalized by your struggle, nor sentimental about your excuses. Give them permission to ask specific questions. Agree together on the truths you will wield when temptation surges. Pray with the bluntness of soldiers who know the terrain. The enemy is not impressed by vague inspiration. He yields to clear allegiance. Community that prays specifically is like a wall that closes ranks when one section is under attack. You will feel the miracle of borrowed courage, and in time you will become the one who lends it. Because the will is finite, you must steward its allocation. Many fall into sin not because they wanted darkness more than light, but because they spent themselves on lesser fights and had no strength left for the real one. The flesh will bait you into perpetual outrage, low-grade drama, and tasks that mimic importance while stealing energy from calling. The Spirit will teach you to ask before each yes. Is this mine? Does this bear the weight of my assignment or just the itch of my ego? When you withdraw your will from fake urgencies, you regain power for holy priorities. Then, when a genuine test arrives, you are not already frayed. You have margin to pray, space to listen, strength to refuse, and tenderness to bless. Holiness is not only what you resist, it is what you reserve yourself for. Endurance also asks you to reconcile with slowness. The flesh says that if change were real, it would be immediate and total. The Spirit says that if change is real, it will be rooted and steady. Trees do not apologize for slow rings. Neither must you apologize for slow growth that lasts. Learn to celebrate trajectories, not theatrics. If last month you spiraled for 3 days, and this month you caught it in 3 hours, that is sanctification. If last year you needed to be seen to feel significant, and this year you can serve, unseen with quiet joy, that is sanctification. If yesterday you collapsed after failure, and today you confess, repair, and re-enter your assignment, that is sanctification. The flesh hates process because process denies it the thrill of extremes. The Spirit loves process because process respects the dignity of persons. God is not assembling products, He is forming people. People learn, unlearn, relearn. People bruise, heal, and come back wiser. People become safe houses of peace in noisy cities because they kept showing up when no one applauded. Your will, trained by such a process, becomes not only strong but gentle. Strong enough to say no to what wounds you, gentle enough to say yes to what builds others. When the flesh cannot seduce you with obvious bait, it will try sophistication, tempting you to baptize your ambition with Bible verses, or to call escapism self-care, while you abandon hard, holy responsibilities. The Spirit counters by integrating your inner and outer life until what you speak in prayer and what you practice in public share the same root. Integration is exhausting for hypocrisy and restful for honesty. When your will lives in integration, you stop spending energy managing a divided self. That reclaimed energy becomes joy. And joy is not a luxury, it is a strength. The joy of the Lord is a force that keeps you from envying the shortcuts of the wicked and from resenting the pace of the righteous. Joy makes endurance buoyant. Without joy, endurance becomes resentful and eventually cruel. With joy, endurance becomes radiant and quietly contagious. To train the will, you must also train the imagination, because the will follows the picture of the good you carry. The flesh paints in neon, always close up, always now. The Spirit paints in daylight, sometimes distant, but true. Practically, this means you must rehearse the future you are being formed for. A future where your children or your friends feel safe, because your word is reliable. A future where your craft is honest, because you refuse the shortcuts that would have made you impressive but hollow. A future where your prayer life is sturdy, because you kept showing up even when you felt nothing and discovered that faithfulness breeds feeling more often than feeling breeds faithfulness. Carry that future in your mind's pocket and take it out when the counterfeit flashes. Ask, will this click, sip, flirt, lie, or shortcut help me carry that future, or will it puncture it? The will loves clarity. Give it clarity. Finally, remember that endurance is sustained by grace received, not grit performed. If you confuse grace with leniency, you will keep sin close because you think it costs little. If you confuse grace with wages, you will despair after every fall because you think you forfeited your pay. Grace is neither leniency nor wages. Grace is God's own life given to you, His power made perfect in weakness, His presence turning your effort from self-salvation into cooperation. You offer your loaves and fish, grace multiplies. You stretch out the withered will. Grace restores its strength as you stretch. You confess with ash on your tongue. Grace washes and sends you back with a clean mouth. In this light, training the will is no longer a self-help project. It is a participation in divine help. You show up to the gym of ordinary obedience, and Christ meets you there, the carpenter who knows how to shape wood and hearts, sanding what splinters, bracing what bends, and sealing you against rot with His own Spirit. So keep your practices small and sharp. Guard your gaze, stack your rhythms. Honor your guardrails. Choose companions who tell you the truth you promised to live. Reserve your strength for loves that last. Let slowness dignify the work. Integrate your inner and outer life until they rhyme. Rehearse the future that obedience builds. And above all, confess quickly and receive gladly, because the one who began a good work in you will complete it. Not by shaming you into sprinting, but by shepherding you into steady pace. Your flesh will keep proposing exits. Smile and stay the course. You are not who your last impulse says you are. You are who your Savior says you are, and each faithful step says amen to his voice. If this message is strengthening you and you want more long-form teachings that help you build a steady, joyful will in the real battles you face, subscribe to the channel now and stay with us for the next topics. Desire does not disappear when you decide to walk by the Spirit. It is converted. What once surged as craving becomes, under the Spirit's care, a compass for communion. The flesh treats desire as a tyrant. If it shouts, you must obey. The Spirit treats desire as a traveler. If it knocks, you test its passport and ask what country it represents. Some desires come bearing the seal of heaven, hunger for truth, longing for clean joy, ache for reconciliation, thirst for righteousness that steadies a family and quiets a city street. Other desires come forged in hurry and flattery, promising you a life in which nothing is demanded of you except that you keep feeding them. The art of spiritual maturity is learning to host the right guests and send the others away, not with contempt, but with clarity. You will not become free by calling every desire evil. That only makes you suspicious of your own heart and fearful of joy. You become free by submitting every desire to discernment, letting the Spirit teach you which longings are seeds from God and which are weeds that threaten those seeds. Do not be ashamed that you want. Be attentive to what your wanting is doing to you. If it makes you smaller, more secret, more frantic, more brittle, more dismissive of other people's image-bearing, it is not your friend. If it makes you larger in love, more patient with process, more honest in small rooms, more courageous in public costs, more restful even in effort, it is the Spirit maturing you. Attention is how desire breathes, so the battleground is the gaze. The flesh starves your best desires by flooding your attention with trivial sparks until your inner night sky looks too cloudy to navigate. The Spirit clears the weather. This is why it matters what you regularly rehearse. Habits are not moral decorations, they are the architecture of love. When your morning begins with noise, your soul has to fight uphill all day to remember what is simple and good. When your morning begins with surrender, your soul has rails to run on when afternoon pressure arrives. You can feel the difference on the days you get dragged by the stream and the days you step into it with a direction. This is not perfectionism, it is stewardship. You have one mind to offer, one body to inhabit, one day at a time to live. The world will use your attention if you will not bless it. Bless it by giving it an altar, not an algorithm. A set of first words that tell it what it is for before lesser words can recruit it to their errands. The mind renews at the speed of truth remembered under pressure. It is one thing to know a verse when the room is calm. It is another thing to speak it when your pulse is tall and your chest is tight and your old path glows like a runway in the dark. But that is exactly when truth was meant to be used. Think of truth as a rope thrown into a river. You do not need it until the water takes you. Memorization, meditation, singing, praying the Psalms aloud, these are not pious hobbies. They are the way you put rope along the banks before the storm. In the moment of temptation, the flesh offers a script. You deserve this. You need this. No one will know. It doesn't matter anymore. You've already gone this far. The Spirit offers another script. You are not your impulse. You are not alone here. The Lord is near. What you sow now will meet you in the morning. The door of return stands open, and the path of obedience is still yours. Practice which script you will use. When you use the Spirit's words, you are not pretending to be strong, you are aligning with reality. Sin is a story about isolation. Obedience is a story about belonging. Bodies tell the truth about our loves long before our mouths do, so embodiment matters. You can pray on your feet as well as on your knees, but there are days when kneeling tells your soul what your words struggle to say. You can confess vaguely, but there are days when writing the exact sentence you would rather hide is how the lie loses its camouflage. You can walk anywhere, but there are days when walking outside turns down the volume of the room where you were drowning. The flesh wants you to think that spiritual life lives only in your head, so that you will keep it abstract and unthreatening. The Spirit wants your whole self. Eyes that look away when looking would harm, hands that open instead of tightening, shoulders that carry what is yours without resenting it, feet that take you to fellowship instead of to secrecy, a mouth that blesses even when silence would feel safer. If you train your body to cooperate with holiness, your thoughts will find a house ready for them. This cooperation requires practical decisions that sound small but change futures. What you install and uninstall, where you charge your devices, when you stop working so that worship can breathe, which roads you do not drive at night, which invitations you decline, which rooms you do not enter alone, which meals you linger over because conversation heals, hurries harm. The world will call some of this extreme. Heaven will call it wisdom. Extremes for image are vanity, extremes for integrity are love. The flesh is a sprinter without stamina. It wants a burst of novelty and then boredom to demand another hit. The Spirit is a patient teacher. It loves repetitions that refine. Think of a craftsman at a bench, sanding the same edge until the wood receives oil like skin drinks rain. The Spirit will return you to the same lesson until the grain runs clear. Patience with that one family member who activates your oldest reflexes. Chastity across seasons, not just weeks. Integrity when promotions arrive and when they pass you by. Humility when you are right and when you are corrected. Gentleness toward those who cannot yet carry what you carry. It is tempting to chase fresh spiritual epiphanies as if novelty were proof of depth. But the deepest people you know are rarely the most entertained. They are the most entrusted. God entrusts more to those who can love the long road without contempt. Boredom often signals that you have not yet discovered the subtleties of obedience. There is more to notice, more to refine, more to enjoy in the simple. You will find with time that ordinary faithfulness has its own shimmer. Confession is the doorway through which oxygen returns to a starved room. The flesh will tell you confession is humiliation, a loss of leverage, a public weakening. The Spirit will show you that confession is precision, the courage to let the right diagnosis lead to the right medicine. Hiding teaches your nervous system to live in the posture of a fugitive. Confession teaches it to live like a child in a house where the lights come on and the windows open. Confession to God is essential. Confession to trusted people often makes the turning point tactile. Say the sentence out loud. Listen to it. Feel how small the sin sounds when its sales pitch is stripped of exaggeration. Notice how quickly shame loses altitude when faced with someone who loves your future more than your alibi. Restoration does not erase consequence, but it restores communion, and communion is where the energy for change actually lives. Many swear to change without rejoining communion and wonder why they keep collapsing. They are trying to power sanctification with isolation. Bring your life back to the table. Eat with the honest. Pray with the blunt. Serve with the steady. Sing with the grateful. The room itself will carry you when your legs shake. Service is not a detour from your struggle. It is often the bridge out of it. The flesh traps you in self-preoccupation. How am I feeling? What am I missing? Who is seeing me? Why is this hard for me? And makes your inner weather the most important news. The Spirit loosens your clenched fist by putting blessing in it for someone else. Visit the hospital, write the note, wash the dishes no one thanks you for, take the late-night call from the friend who does not know how to say the thing they must say. In serving, you become porous again. The enemy loses his favorite tool, a tiny world where you are the sun, and every disappointment is an eclipse. Service restores proportion. You remember you are a member, not a monarch. You are a branch, not the vine. And paradoxically, your dignity rises, because the image of God in you was made to be radiant in generosity. Lust shrinks love to taking, greed shrinks love to hoarding, pride shrinks love to performance. Service cracks those shells, and living water runs. Suffering will visit you even if you obey, and sometimes precisely because you obey. The flesh treats suffering as permission to indulge. You deserve a break from goodness. The Spirit treats suffering as an invitation to deeper union. Come learn how I carry weight with you. There is a way to suffer that increases temptation, and a way to suffer that weakens it. If your pain becomes your excuse to abandon the practices that hold you, your pain will hire your past to manage your present. If your pain becomes the place where you double down on prayer, simplify your devotions, ask for help sooner, and refuse to narrate your life in accusations against God, your pain will become a school where you learn how strong the yoke really is. You will discover a peace that does not deny the storm, and a joy that is not allergic to tears. Temptation loses much of its leverage when you have tasted a comfort that does not vanish with the bottle, the click, the applause, or the purchase. The Spirit specializes in this exchange. He does not waste sorrow. He baptizes it. On the far side of baptized sorrow, there is a softness that makes you safer for others and a solidity that makes you safer for yourself. Discernment grows when you practice asking better questions. The flesh always asks, "What can I get away with?" The Spirit trains you to ask, "What will make me more capable of love?" Another wise question, what story will this choice write in me? One click tells the body a story about secrecy. One refusal tells the body a story about sovereignty. One harsh reply tells the tongue a story about power. One gentle answer tells it a story about patience under pressure. We underestimate how quickly repetition becomes identity. Repeat a lie often enough, and your body starts to prepare for it before you decide. Repeat a truth often enough, and your body starts to accompany it with ease. This is why small victories matter. They are identity rehearsals. Celebrate them without arrogance. Thanksgiving is applause for grace, not a trophy for ego. Keep a quiet record if it helps. Moments when you chose light, moments when you returned quickly after you did not. Review it on the days the enemy claims that you never change. The evidence will contradict him. Your relationships will either conspire with your holiness or with your habits. Choose conspirators wisely. A friend who jokes you toward your old coping mechanisms is not neutral. They are an unpaid evangelist for your relapse. A friend who treats your boundaries like insults is not loving you. They are fighting your future to protect their own comfort. Seek out those rare souls who can celebrate your joy without needing to share it, and can enter your sorrow without rushing to fix it. Give them access to your calendar, and your calendar access to your convictions. Put recurring check-ins in the week like nails that hold the frame of a house. Do not rely on crisis to create connection. Build connection so crisis has a place to land without wrecking the whole structure. And be that kind of person for others. Your commitment to someone else's holiness has a way of circling back and strengthening your own at the exact hour you need it. When success comes, because God will trust you with measures of it, let it become another test you take with reverence. Fame and fruit are not the same. Fruit tastes like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Fame tastes like attention and then asks for more salt. The flesh will invite you to interpret growth as permission to loosen the very practices that produced it. The Spirit will invite you to read growth as confirmation to deepen them. If more people are listening, you need more prayer, not less. More scripture, not less. More counsel, not less. More confession, not less. The higher a tree grows, the more wind it must endure. Roots must sink deeper, or the beautiful thing will fall at the first storm loud enough to make a headline. Ask God for the grace to enjoy what He gives without mistaking the gift for the goal. The goal is Him, His likeness formed in you, until those who know you best are the ones most compelled to say, quietly and without spectacle, that you are becoming more patient, more honest, more anchored, more free. None of this is accomplished by contempt for your humanity. The Spirit is not offended by your creatureliness, your need for sleep, for laughter, for friendship that is not an assignment, for play that is not a productivity hack. The flesh wants to satisfy a human need with a dehumanizing method. The Spirit wants to satisfy a human need with a humanizing presence. Do not punish yourself for being tired. Steward your tiredness so that temptation cannot harvest it. Do not shame yourself for needing beauty. Choose beauty that awakens gratitude, not lust or envy. Do not despise your hunger for affirmation. Bring it into conversations where you can be named truthfully, not flattered into inflation. You are permitted to be a person. Holiness is not the erasure of the person. It is the healing of the person until the person can carry the weight of glory without cracking into performance. Keep repeating the simple liturgy. I am not my impulse. I am His. I am not alone in this room. The Helper is here. What I choose plants tomorrow. My body can learn new ways. My mind can be renewed. My heart can grow spacious again. My failures are not prophecies. They are occasions for mercy to prove its scale. My successes are not permissions. They are occasions for gratitude to protect me from pride. I do not fight to earn a place. I fight because I have one. I do not resist to impress. I resist to remain aligned with love. Say it out loud if you need to. Let your own ears hear your allegiance. The air changes when you declare who you belong to. And when you fall, and some days you will, close the gap quickly. Run to the one who already ran to you. Do not curate a perfect apology. Pray a true one. Do not negotiate your way into acceptance. Receive it, and then make the phone call, send the message, repair what can be repaired, accept consequence where it is just, and step back onto the path. There is a humility that dramatizes failure as if it were more interesting than grace. Do not practice that. Practice the humility that believes God about you when your shame does not. Practice the courage that agrees with God about sin so that you do not keep it as a pet. Practice the joy that refuses to let the accuser write your biography. The sentence that matters most over your life is spoken from a throne higher than your history, and it begins with beloved. If this journey is building you and you want more long-form teachings that steady your steps and water your courage for the daily fight, subscribe to the channel now and keep walking with us through the next topics. Holiness does not bloom in sterile rooms. It grows in the weather of real life, where interruptions knock at the door you wanted to keep closed, where disappointments arrive without asking your schedule, where people you love bring their own wounds and their own ways of wounding. The flesh insists that you must secure ideal conditions before you can live faithfully. The Spirit teaches you to find God precisely in the conditions you have. This is why some of the strongest saints you will ever meet inhabit ordinary circumstances with extraordinary steadiness. They have learned the liturgy of the unplanned. They bless what arrives, submit what hurts, resist what corrupts, and cultivate what heals. Their holiness is not fragile, it is resilient and kind because it is practiced in the mess, not in the museum. The flesh imagines holiness as an escape from the world's pressure. The Spirit forms holiness as a way of being within pressure that does not pass on pressure to others. When you begin to live like this, temptation shifts strategy. It stops trying to sell you obvious vices and starts trying to recruit your virtues into its service. It wants you to be so responsible you refuse rest, so generous you neglect order, so bold you lose tenderness, so truthful you forget gentleness. Discernment is the art of refusing to let the good become a disguise for the destructive. Love requires proportion. You will practice this proportion 100 times a day as you choose when to speak and when to be silent, when to move and when to wait, when to let a matter die quietly and when to seek repair with clarity. Under the Spirit's guidance, you begin to feel which action increases capacity for love and which action only relieves your discomfort. The soul must learn to breathe in small rooms. By small rooms, I mean those pockets of time between assignments, those minutes waiting in a car line or standing at a sink, those household chores that repeat like a chorus. The flesh despises these rooms because they are not dramatic. It trains you to waste them or to resent them. The Spirit loves these rooms because they are teachable. In small rooms, the soul rehearses big truths gently. Place a psalm there, place a prayer there, place a sentence of gratitude there, place a phone call there to encourage a friend without drawing attention to yourself. These tiny obediences are like threads that, woven over weeks and months, become a strong fabric you can wrap around a cold evening. The day you face a sharper test, you will find yourself warmer than you expected, clothed by the quiet choices you kept making when no one was looking. This is the opposite of performance religion. Performance wants an audience and weakens when lights go out. Formation wants reality and strengthens when lights go out. The Spirit works best in that darkness, not because darkness is good, but because honesty grows there undistracted by applause. The flesh is easily offended because it is constantly measuring how the world treats it. The Spirit is not easily offended because it is constantly measuring how to treat the world. Offense can be a necessary alert when injustice is real, but the flesh converts offense into identity, turning you into a curator of grievances. The Spirit converts offense into intercession, or into honest boundaries, or into a quiet relinquishment that refuses to let bitterness colonize the heart. You practice this when the comment stings, when the promotion passes you, when the misunderstanding lingers. In those moments the flesh wants to be king for 5 minutes. Let it not reign at all. Pray for the person who provoked you, not to prove you are superior, but to keep your heart supple. Write the email you will not send, so the poison has somewhere to drain. Ask, what hard truth is mine to own, and what lie must I refuse? The Spirit will not flatter you, but neither will he accuse you as the enemy does. He will separate bone from marrow, asking for confession where it fits and defending your peace where you have walked in integrity. If you let him, he will turn the sting into wisdom, which is a better possession than vindication. To keep walking in this way, you must become a student of pace. The flesh has only 2 speeds, frantic and frozen. Frantic commits you to more than you can keep and then resents everyone who asks for what you promised. Frozen tells you that effort is futile and trains you to duck opportunities. The Spirit gives you a 3rd speed, faithful. Faithful is not slow for laziness, nor fast for vanity. It is paced for fruit. Fruit takes sun and rain, pruning and patience. Fruit takes seasons where nothing seems to change above ground, even though the roots are busy with hidden work. When you accept faithful pace, envy loosens its grip because you stop measuring your worth by someone else's harvest week. You bless their abundance and return to tending your plot, trusting that the orchard is large and the gardener is wise. The flesh makes you think your life is a contest where other people's joy is a threat. The Spirit returns your life to covenant where other people's joy becomes a reason to sing. In this climate, temptation has less oxygen. You are less likely to reach for what is not yours when you are satisfied with the field entrusted to you. There is a quiet courage that grows in those who practice returning quickly, Returning quickly is the discipline of shortening the distance between falling and falling at his feet. The flesh lengthens that distance with complicated self-punishments, as if severity could substitute for repentance. Severity bruises but does not heal. Repentance realigns and ushers you into contact with the one who heals. This returning is not theatrical. It sounds like talking plain. It sounds like the tax collector's prayer, like Peter's tears, like the prodigal's rehearsal turning into real speech. It looks like changing course without advertisement. It smells like fresh air in a room that was closed too long. If you return quickly, failure becomes a teacher rather than a tyrant. It will not write your future. It will educate it. You will begin to trust God's kindness as fuel for holiness rather than abusing it as permission to wander. That trust itself becomes a guardrail because people do not want to hurt the one they have learned to lean on. The flesh reduces calling to platform. The spirit enlarges calling to presence. Presence is the sanctified nearness that changes rooms without announcing itself. It is the patience that lowers the temperature in a meeting. It is the fairness that protects the name of someone not in the room. It is the thoroughness that honors a craft for its own sake. It is the softness that lets a child relax or an aging parent feel seen. It is the forgiveness that sets a sibling free from a debt you held too long. This presence does not require a title, but when a title comes, presence steadies it. If you practice presence, your work will be transfigured from productivity into prayer. You will make spreadsheets that keep promises. You will cook meals that restore dignity. You will design or fix or teach in ways that help other image bearers feel the goodness of being alive. The flesh says this is naive. The spirit says this is dominion, servant dominion, that resembles the one who washed feet. And in such dominion, temptation has little room, because love fills the space. Gratitude is not a mood for good days. It is a weapon for hard days. The flesh uses gratitude like a seasonal decoration. The spirit wields it like steel. Proper gratitude does not deny grief. It denies grief, the final word. It does not trivialize loss. It refuses to let loss define the story. When you practice naming gifts in dark hours, your heart learns repeatedly that God has not evacuated your life. This makes you brave in your choices. You risk obedience because you trust that even if the immediate outcome stings, the ultimate outcome holds. You are less seduced by the ease of compromise because your appetite for wonder is being fed legitimately. Gratitude widens your gaze so that temptation, which depends on narrowing your gaze to a single shiny object, loses leverage. Keep a simple practice. 3 honest thanks at day's end. Not performative, not grand, just specific. The phone call that came at the right time. The meal that reminded you of a simpler day. The text where someone checked on you without knowing why. Over time, the soul grows eyes. Speech is another frontier. The tongue will always try to emancipate itself from the heart's conversion. It wants to speak first and be sanctified later. The spirit reverses the order. He trains silence to be a friend, not a threat. Silence is not the absence of truth. It is the space where truth is prepared. In that space you ask, is what I am about to say true, necessary, and likely to build? The flesh is fluent in sarcasm because sarcasm lets you strike without appearing to. It's also fluent in exaggeration because exaggeration disguises control as passion. Practice clean speech. Name the thing without barbs. Make the ask without theater. Offer the encouragement without the hook of needing a favor back. Words like this become sacraments in an age of spin. They carry a kind of weight that the exaggerations and ironic quips cannot carry. And because you are the first to hear your own voice, such speech catechizes you. It recalibrates your inner meter until your conscience rests. To keep your heart spacious, you must acknowledge limits with reverence. The flesh hates limits because limits expose dependence, But dependence in the kingdom is not disgrace, it is design. The Father delights to give bread, not stones. The Son delights to yoke himself to your labor so the burden is shared. The Spirit delights to anchor where he is invited, not as a guest you entertain on Sundays, but as the indwelling friend who arranges furniture for wiser walking. Limits create intimacy. When you say, "I cannot carry this alone," you make room for communion. When you say, "I cannot go to every event," you make room for depth where you do go. When you say, "I cannot please everyone," you make room for pleasing God with a whole heart. Limits become a trellis where love climbs higher than it could have if it sprawled on the ground. Trellised love bears fruit that strangers taste years later and bless the gardener they never met. You will find that hospitality disarms many temptations because it opens your life. The flesh keeps doors locked because secrecy breeds options. The Spirit opens doors because connection breeds accountability and joy. Host a table that is simple enough to repeat. Invite those who rarely receive invitations. Let the conversation wander from laughter to questions that matter. In such rooms, loneliness loosens, and when loneliness loosens, the shortcuts it once advertised grow less persuasive. The community you create becomes part of your holiness. It teaches you to receive, not only to give. It humbles you to be prayed for, not only to pray. It exposes blind spots gently because friends who share bread earn a right to speak that strangers do not possess. Hospitality becomes a quiet revolution against the isolation that keeps sin tidy. Keep watch over your intake, not in fear, but in fidelity. Every story you consume seeks permission to tutor you. Some will teach you to see bodies as commodities. Decline the syllabus. Some will drill you in cynicism until trust feels foolish. Drop the class. Some will rehearse revenge until mercy feels weak. Change schools. Read and watch and listen to what enlarges your compassion without flattening your convictions. You are not fragile. You are a steward. The Spirit will not police you harshly. He will parent you. Parents say no, not to stunt joy, but to preserve it. He will also say yes to beauty, the album that quiets you, the poem that breaks you open in the right way, the film that portrays courage without glamorizing rot. Let such beauty repair your taste so that lesser sweets lose their chemical appeal. There will be seasons when your prayers feel like they are hitting a ceiling. Pray through the ceiling. The ceiling is not God, it is your weather. Pray the simplest prayers when the fancy ones fail. Lord, have mercy. Lord, help. Lord, I am here. Lord, I want to want what you want. Stay in the conversation. The flesh wants you to equate feeling with presence so that the absence of the first convinces you of the absence of the second. But presence is covenant, not mood. You are being kept while you knock. Often the answer arrives sideways, a call you did not expect, a clarity about a decision, a tenderness for someone you resented, a sudden desire to give attention to a neglected practice. These are not small, they are signatures. Keep them, collect them. They will form a story that steadies you later when another ceiling returns. Every temptation invites amnesia about who you are. The Spirit fights it with remembrance. Remembrance gathers God's acts and your responses into a coherent testimony. Keep telling yourself the true story, where He found you, what He rescued you from, what He has built and is building. Do this in speech and in sacraments. Receive bread and cup with trembling gratitude, not as ritual for habit's sake, but as fuel for identity. You partake in a victory that has already named you clean. Stand up from that table like a person who has a family and a future. Go wash feet where you live. Go repair what you can. Go with a gentleness that cannot be counterfeited because it comes from having been forgiven much. That gentleness is not weakness, it is strength that has remembered its source. Hold fast, then. Let your days grow simple and your heart grow spacious. Refuse the tyranny of urgency where love is not at stake. Refuse the lie that you must be someone else to be holy. The Spirit sanctifies what is real, not what is curated. He meets you in the kitchen, in the commute, in the inbox, in the late-night worry, in the early morning doubt. He makes those places altars and those minutes offerings. And as you keep offering, the miracle keeps happening. Your desires align more easily, your refusals cost you less, your joys deepen, your sorrows baptize you without drowning you. Your speech clarifies, your pace steadies, your boundaries stop feeling like fences and start feeling like freedom. People around you may not have language for it, but they will feel safer. You will have become a place where God's weather is predictable, mercy with truth, courage with tenderness, joy with sobriety, zeal with wisdom. That is what the soul looks like when spirit overcomes sin. Not a billboard for your willpower, but a living room for His presence. If this is speaking to your spirit and you want more long-form teachings that strengthen your daily walk and help you live with steady courage and clean joy, subscribe to the channel now and stay with us for the final topic and the closing word. The victory of the Spirit over sin is not a single scene, but a sustained song. The kind you learn by ear, line by line, until your whole body remembers it. On some mornings you will hear it easily, the melody of mercy rising before you speak. On other mornings you will search the quiet for even a single note. Either way, faithfulness is the decision to sing what you know is true until feeling joins in. By now, you have learned that the flesh is loudest where you are loneliest, that it promises speed but offers cycles, and that the Spirit never hurries you into compromise nor shames you into silence. The Spirit forms you by letting truth pass through your real life, the schedule that stretches you, the relationships that refine you, the disappointments that humble you, the opportunities that test your humility. You are not a problem to be solved, you are a person to be formed. Formation takes everything, memory, body, thought, practice, and returns it to God piece by piece until the whole is fit to carry His presence without cracking into pretense. The flesh treats holiness as a fragile costume. The Spirit clothes you with a character that survives weather. So we come to the final movement. Living a life that doesn't simply avoid the old traps, but quietly heals the ground where those traps once worked. This is the work of integration, where belief, belonging, and behavior stop competing and begin to agree, not because you are rigid, but because you are rooted. Integration begins with vows, small, honest vows you keep when no one is keeping score. You make vows to your mornings, not to own the day by force, but to offer the opening of it to the one who owns you in love. You make vows to your words, choosing clarity over performance, blessing over brilliant cruelty, truth over tactical half-truths that protect image but fracture integrity. You make vows to your eyes, teaching them to linger on wonder rather than wandering into hunger that is not yours to feed. You make vows to your hands, training them to give even when the gift is invisible to others, withholding them from grasping what is not yours even when no one would notice the grasp. The world will not applaud such vows. Often it will not notice them at all. But heaven reads what is hidden, and hidden faithfulness is where the Spirit builds foundations that cannot be stolen. The flesh sneers at small vows because it believes only in spectacle. The Spirit invests in them because the Spirit is the Lord of seeds. Seeds are slow, but they do not lie. Plant them and wait. Keep watering through seasons that look unmoved. In due time, you will not only resist what once mastered you, you will forget how to do some old sins because your reflex has been retrained by love. To live integrated is to befriend reality. Not the reality edited by your fears, nor the reality dramatized by your pride, but the reality that stands when the noise ends. That reality says you are made, not self-made, given, not self-invented, called, not self-appointed, kept, not self-contained. It says your body has limits that are not enemies. Your mind has habits that can be renewed. Your heart has desires that can be discipled until they serve your joy instead of stealing it. Integration sounds ordinary because it is daily, but daily is where destiny hides. When you stop running from your limits and start receiving them, peace returns with its proper company. Courage, because you are no longer pretending. Clarity, because you are no longer flattering your illusions. Tenderness, because you are no longer at war with the parts of you that still need time to grow. Tenderness is not the enemy of holiness. It is one of holiness's brightest lights. People who have made peace with their formation process are gentle toward other people's process. They stop mistaking impatience for strength and severity for truth. The flesh uses severity like a hammer. The spirit uses truth like a surgeon's light, precise, clean, healing. When the Spirit's light exposes what must change, you will feel the difference. You are convicted without being crushed, invited without being coddled, strengthened without being flattered. That light is worth welcoming every day, because you belong to a king who is also a shepherd. Your holiness will inevitably become hospitable. The flesh hoards progress like a secret advantage. The Spirit turns progress into shelter. This is how generational patterns break. Someone who could have used their healing as leverage uses it as a table. You remember what confusion felt like, so you speak simply to the confused. You remember what shame felt like, so you create rooms where confession is thinkable and repair is normal. You remember what isolation felt like, so you leave your door unlocked for interruption. Your calendar unsoldered enough for mercy to rearrange it. Strong people who have not been softened by grace force others into their rhythm. Strong people who have been softened by grace make rhythm easier for others to join. The former build empires, the latter build families. Empires demand performance, families practice patience. If you live as family, your strength will not intimidate the weak, it will invite them. Your clarity will not embarrass the uncertain, it will steady them. Your boundaries will not humiliate the needy, they will teach the needy how to live with dignity. This is holiness with a face and a table. Integration also means receiving your assignment without envy and returning it without regret. You are given a measure of time, of gifts, of influence, of geography, of wounds through which grace will later flow. The flesh wastes your measure by measuring you against someone else. It counts another's fruit like a threat and turns your field into a theater of comparison, where harvest is not joy but judgment. The Spirit reteaches measure as stewardship. Stewardship looks at your plot, its size, its soil, its weather, and prays, "Teach me to love this field with your patience and your pace." You plant where you are, not where you fantasize you would be stronger. You add compost where things have been overused. You prune not to punish the branch, but to prepare it for weight. You rest the ground when yield would steal next year. You welcome other laborers without suspicion, because the orchard is one, and the gardener reads the whole ledger. At the end of a year, if you can say you loved your field with honesty and courage, you have kept faith. Let the Lord decide the scale of what He does with that faith. You will find that this freedom from publicity, from panic, from poisonous ambition, tastes like clear water. It is easier to refuse temptation when you no longer need its counterfeit rewards to feel alive. Suffering will pass through your field. Sometimes it will tear rows you just planted. Sometimes it will soak the ground so long you wonder if anything can root there again. Sometimes it will arrive like early frost and make you grieve what almost ripened. The flesh interprets suffering as proof that obedience failed. The Spirit interprets suffering as ground for deeper roots and different fruit. Slow fruit that feeds more people for longer than the fast fruit you originally imagined. You will not minimize pain to sound devout. Faith does not lie to look strong. You will tell the truth and stay in covenant. You will write down the gifts that still arrive in winter. Friends who carry you, a psalm that suddenly speaks with new muscle, a small provision that comes just in time, a loosened attachment to what cannot keep you, a quiet presence in prayer when you have nothing impressive to offer. These are not consolation prizes. They are provisions from the country you are headed to. Smuggled into this one to keep you walking. Temptation loses its shine when heaven's air begins to show up in your chest like that, when you have inhaled a comfort that does not dissolve by morning. If the Spirit is forming you, He will keep returning you to the ministry of attention. Attention is love's currency. You spend it on what you are becoming. If your attention is chained to grievance, you will become skillful at rehearsing harm and clumsy at perceiving grace. If your attention is chained to appetite, you will become brilliant at finding shortcuts and bored by anything that takes time. If your attention is apprenticed to God through scripture that you chew until it feeds you, through prayer that is more honest than ornate, through fellowship where your real name is used, through work offered as worship, you will become a person for whom goodness is normal, not rare. The flesh says normal is noise and hurry and outrage and irony. The Spirit says normal is patience and clear speech and gratitude and courage under pressure. You cannot build that normal with tweets and peaks. You build it with hours. You build it with choosing to put the phone in another room so that your mind can remember how to be a home. You build it with taking walks that have no destination but presence. You build it with cooking and cleaning as prayer, with writing notes you do not post, with lighting a candle when you open the Word, because you are, in fact, preparing a room. If you prepare rooms like this, God will use them. Maybe not publicly, maybe not on your schedule, but use them He will, because He always comes where He is welcomed and always multiplies what is placed in His hands. The integrated life also knows what to do with power. The flesh sees power as permission. The Spirit sees power as responsibility. When you are given authority over a team, a classroom, a budget, a platform, a home, you remember that the one who holds all authority once wrapped a towel and washed feet that would soon run away from him. Authority that looks like Him will protect the weak from the strong, not the strong from accountability. It will make decisions in light, not in shadow. It will confess mistakes before being cornered into them. It will build systems that outlast your charisma so that goodness does not depend on your energy to survive. It will ask what happens to the least visible person in the room when this choice is made and adjust accordingly. Power stewarded like this becomes sacramental. People feel the shape of God's kingdom in their bones, even if they do not yet have language for why peace came with the new manager, why hope rose when the policy changed, why creativity returned when fear left. In such climates, the temptations that once prowled the margins lose their favorite places to hide, and there is joy. Do not forget joy. Without joy, holiness curdles into grim duty. With joy, holiness becomes a dance only humility can sustain. Joy is not a denial of pain. It is the insistence that pain does not exhaust reality. Joy rises where gratitude has been practiced in secret, where confession has cleared stale rooms, where forgiveness has unclogged old wells, where friendship has been chosen over image. Joy laughs easily because it is not guarding a fiction. Joy gives generously because it knows who provides. Joy notices small beauties because it has slowed enough to see them. The steam over the first cup, the face that relaxes when you remember their name, the child's question that interrupts your very important plan and turns out to be a question you needed to hear. Joy is unembarrassed by dependence. Joy receives as freely as it gives. The flesh tries to mimic joy with entertainment and excess. It produces hangovers and hollowness. The Spirit produces joy by rooting you in unshakable things, forgiveness that is not revoked, adoption that is not probation, a future that is not fragile, a presence that does not evacuate when you fail. Learn what returns you to that root and keep it close. Some days, living like this will make you feel slow in a culture addicted to speed. Let it. Some days, telling the truth will make you feel small among people who perform. Let it. Some days refusing an easy escape will make you ache with the weight of staying. Let it. Let it, because you are being built into someone who can carry love without breaking it. Someone whose word holds when wind rises. Someone whose children or friends or students or neighbors will thank God quietly that you settled into the narrow path until it widened into a road others could safely walk. There is nothing glamorous about many of the choices you will make, but there will be glory in them, the kind that settles on faces after prayer, the kind that lingers in rooms after reconciliation, the kind that travels in a voice that does not need to shout to be heard, because it carries the weight of a life that has been with God. So lift your eyes. The battle is not glamorous, but it is good. Your flesh will keep sending decoys dressed as destiny. Let them pass. Your spirit-led life will keep sending invitations disguised as ordinary tasks. Receive them. Wash the feet you can reach. Bless the house you already live in. Steward the field you were given. Tell the truth without theater. Guard your gaze without self-hatred. Return quickly without despair. Pray simply without apology. Feast gratefully when it is time, and fast quietly when it is time. Seek counsel before it is urgent, and give counsel without making people your project. Give money where your heart should go, and watch your heart follow like a humble student. Forgive before the apology comes. Confess before the confrontation is forced, and keep singing, even if it is only a line at first, until the line becomes a life. If this word has strengthened you, and you want more long-form, soul-deep teachings that help you walk this path with steady courage and quiet joy, subscribe to the channel now and stay close for the closing message.